we looked through some of your questions and comments and so forth, and I want to give you a little bit of information about a couple of them. For example, one of you said that we should all wear our name tags, and you're right, except that we have to take them off when we're using a microphone that bumps them. So when we're up here, we often don't have the name tags on because of that. So please just kind of bear with us, and if we're not wearing it when we go back and sit down, remind us, because sometimes we forget to put it back on. But they were interfering with the microphone signal, so that's why we didn't all wear them. So just so you know. Someone said we should give people more chances to move around, and that's true. But you really are responsible for that yourself, so let us just say if you need to get up and pace in the back of the room or the side of the room, or you want to go lean against the wall. I have some stretches against the wall that help me through the day. Please feel free. And anytime we're doing small group work, if you want to mix it up a little and move to other tables, that might be also really useful, because that way you can meet some other people, but also you can use that opportunity to stretch a little bit. So please feel free to do that as a part of your self-care as we go through this process. There were some comments that we wanted to make and answer questions, but we also had some questions that we weren't exactly sure what was meant. So one of those questions was, how do you empower individuals without becoming overbearing and enabling dependence? And we can read that more than one way and we're still not real clear. You don't have to share with us if it was yours, but if it was your comment and you want to share with us, we would like to figure out what you mean. Or you can just write a little more explanation on the sticky note in the middle of the table, and we'll kind of catch up with that later. Also, Stacey had done some, kind of sharing some work about around that too, so she will have some comments later on. A lot of the things that, it was exciting, a lot of the things that you ask, when are we going to talk about, are on the agenda for today. So I guess that tells us that you're ready for the next piece, and we're going to move into that pretty shortly here. So just know that that's going to be happening. We also just made some notes that, different cultures develop leadership in different ways. So we need to be sensitive to that throughout this conversation. Michael's going to cover more about that when he speaks, but just kind of keep that in mind. Also, we talked a little bit about how to be allies, which came up in some of the notes. And there's some concrete examples probably will be useful. We'll try and work those in today. But you might want to think about whose leadership would you like to develop and how. And think about how you can bring them to the table, bring more people to the table as you're developing allies, because those are also potential leaders. They don't all have to be internal. Leadership development has to do partly with giving everybody the space to work together and to develop in their own ways. So you may find some of those folks at the table from another group that you're collaborating with, and that's where the development of new allies might happen. But we want to remind you that you really do already know some of this. And in fact, as we've talked about the people who are marginalized, if you in any of those handouts or any in our conversations, if you would just replace, anytime we're talking about marginalized people, if you would just replace it with people with disabilities, anytime we're talking about people of color, anytime we're talking about the LGBT community, if you would replace whatever that reference is with person with disability, you would find, oh yeah, I get that, because that's a big part of who we are, and this is kind of a way to expand our thinking a little bit. But just think about it that way. You're not really growing new muscles. You're just strengthening something you already know how to do. So think about how to make that happen as you grow. It will be different in every CIL. We recognize that. You've got each of you comes from a different community for the most part. So Those communities are unique and have their own characteristics, and you have to analyze them a little bit yourself and think about who could come to the table, who has not been at the table, and how might you make that happen. A community is not always about everybody coming to you either. It's about relationships with other organizations, relationships with other entities and groups. And so as you develop those relationships and strengthen those relationships, you're going to be respecting others in your community who are not now a part of who you are. And that will begin to open some of those doors to leaders that you may not have thought about in the past. So keep those things in mind. Now, Dolores, there was a question that you were going to answer, I think.
Yeah, so the question was in regards to shared goals, and the question reads, shared goals that are intersectional are often more complicated to address as single issue goals. Should we focus on one over the other? So my response to that would be that it shouldn't be an either or thing. But to reiterate again yesterday was that when you're addressing the needs of the person or persons or the population who has the most significant needs or the most intersectional needs, that you're automatically going to be covering folks who are not also at that intersection. And, you know, sometimes in our work, we could come up up to barriers in how we can do our work, and it's fine if you focus on on single issues or single issue goals, because that is, you know, very much a step into being able to address larger goals, or it could be a good starting point, or it could be what you're really good at. But in that case, I just wouldn't call it necessarily intersectional work or even disability justice work. And that's fine, because disability justice is very new, and it's, you know, it's not something that's going to happen overnight. And if you become an expert at single issue goals and then you just continue to expand and grow, then hopefully it'll happen eventually. So that would be my response. Yeah? Okay. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. That makes sense.